Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brandon Shank, and welcome to the Brandon Shank Podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Brandon Shank Podcast. Always good to have you with us on this beautiful pre-spring day. Welcome, my main man, Corey, in the corner over there.
What up, everybody? It's beautiful out, man. Shorts weather.
Yeah, it's windy.
I'm here for it.
Windy.
It's a little windy. Yeah.
Windy and rain, two things baseball hates.
But still feels
whatever.
good.
You know, my day started out rough, man. I'm not going to lie. I told you a little bit before we came on coffee everywhere. And even you know me, you know that I hate.
Yeah.
I don't mind going through a drive-thru and getting coffee, but anytime I take coffee in a cup, it just always ends up somewhere. And today, I had a lid that fit the cup, but it didn't fit the cup, right? It will fit it, but it wasn't meant for it. So I put the cup in my truck, and as I'm driving, you know, a little coffee bubbles out, and I'm drinking it, and it drips all over me. And then when I get out of my truck, I grab my bag across in the passenger seat and pull it up. And my elbow hits the cup, and the top flies off and lands on the floor. So I have to clean it because I'm not going to suck whatever is off of that thing. And then I pull my coffee cup out, and it's dripping. And then I get up to the office, I clean everything out, put it here, and then sitting here talking to you, and I go to take a drink of it, and it like comes out at warp speed and goes all over me. And it's just, this is why I like drinking my coffee at home, unless I order it from somewhere and drink it on the ride. I just hate coffee getting on my car because it makes your car smell like coffee. Yeah. And I hate that.
Well, you had that like really big old truck of yours, and you said you always had trouble spilling your coffee in and out of that thing.
Always. It's just everywhere. You know, sometimes you just need relief moments.
Yeah.
You have a relief moment? What a relief. What a relief.
Oh,
like
man.
that kind of moment? Well, in order for it to be what a relief, you have to be really stressed about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know,
yeah.
We'll have that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, right.
Oakland launches.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll have that. Yeah.
I'll tell you a relief for me, man.
What?
Work, excuse me. Work's not trying to kill me, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Work's not stressing me out. Church is not stressing me out. You know what stresses me out? Sometimes it's baseball.
Yeah.
That stresses me out.
We're back, baby. We're back.
I know. It's full. We open up this weekend, but our 13U does. But with our team, our schedule's been done, but there's like one more tournament I wanted to get us in. So I got us in that yesterday. And then I'm coaching the 13U Virginia State team at a national tournament in Kansas City this year. And we had to make final cuts. And just because we have players from all over 4 hours, 7 hours, Western Virginia, up near D.C., the Tidewater. We have them all over the state of Virginia that are part of this team. So we were looking at tryout videos, and it's just been a lot. And they're wanting like info for the tournament, and I had to get all the team together before we can send info out. We finally made we committed last night to the roster, and it was just like, what a relief. Like that part of it's over. One of my coaching buddies like, don't do it, man. It's just so much work. But I'm glad I did it. I can't wait. But we finalized the roster. And so for me, it was like, wow, my schedule's finished for my regular 13 team. And then this team, there's players from all over this, you know, it's like, I'm just glad the roster's done. It was like, what a relief. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm excited about it. Excited to watch these kids play. But it was like that, what a relief moment.
Yeah, we start this weekend, so I'm excited.
I'm starting practice?
Yeah, we start practice. So
so I was just like, dude, there's a punch list of stuff. If I don't get done, it'd drive me crazy.
Yeah.
I know y'all got punch lists. I know you listen, and you're probably thinking of your punch list. I have a running list on my phone that helps me a ton with all my. If I didn't have it, I would lose my mind. Yeah. Because I'm a guy who likes to mark things off, and when they get done, when I mark them off, I feel like I've accomplished something significant, even if it was buy Q-tips.
Yeah.
You know,
my wife has one for me. So
for you.
Yeah.
Punch lists are good though, man.
Yeah.
NFL draft is coming up, and I'm hopeful. I'm going to leave it at that.
You're Commanders. Always hopeful.
Yeah, I know. You got to be. That's the only way to be if you're a Commanders fan. So something I was surprised by this week, and I think we have all been not inherently lied to, but I think we have all received a lie. That we believe something that's just not true. If I tell you to turn on your airplane mode on your phone, what do you think that's doing? And this may not be a good question for you because you're techie, but nerd out on me for a moment. If I were to say, hey, turn on your airplane mode on your phone when we get on an airplane, why do you think that you're turning that on?
It turns off all your Wi-Fi and stuff like that. I don't know why the airplane needs me to. Maybe it potentially could interfere with some of their technology.
Whammo. Yeah. That's what we believe.
That's what we believe. It probably doesn't.
You're exactly right. Yeah. And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So the myth of our phone's airplane mode. The number one reason that the airlines do not want your airplane mode on your phone has nothing to do with whether or not you could make it. I accidentally clicked it off one time when I was in the air.
Yeah.
And I got cell phone service.
Wow.
And I hurried up and clicked it off in the air.
That's impressive.
Because you can still get it.
Yeah.
And so I heard it and clicked it off because I was thinking at any moment you're going to hear the seatbelt light come on, the plane's going to nosedive. I was like, oh no, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. So I turned it off, but the airplane mode on your phone actually has nothing to do with interference. The reason they tell you to do it is so people don't have to hear you talk on the phone. That's what they said.
Those guys. Soon we'll be doing it in movie theaters.
It's called ground network interference. And Americans put up with a lot when we fly. I mean, we take off our shoes. It says we go through metal detectors and dump water, all for safety. But it's a speculation that cell phone usage would increase air rage. That's why they tell you to turn it off. They don't want air rage.
Air rage?
Yeah. When you're 30,000 feet up and somebody loses their mind, like they lose all their senses. What do you do? Well, you got to wait 10 minutes to get back down the ground, right? So if planes install these things called picocells, you can use your phone for free when you're in the air. You don't have to pay for it. But it's a traffic controller that ensures phone signals won't cross the plane's communication systems, and it's been around for over 2 decades.
You lost me on that one. It's something you can put on your phone?
No, it's the airplane will put it on.
Oh.
And it's this thing that basically it makes sure the signals don't cross the plane's communication systems, the communication.
Gotcha. Yeah,
but they say it doesn't happen anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a safeguard.
It's crazy.
Isn't it?
Well, I know what I'm doing next time I fly. Getting thrown off a plane, apparently.
No, don't say it because I think it might be with me.
That's
in
true.
April.
That's true.
Yeah, you ain't doing that. You ain't doing that.
Sir, turn your cell phone off. No,
I will not.
To.
Because I am not doing anything wrong.
Why don't you make me, right? And I'll stand up.
and then an air marshal from behind you
will tase me.
Yeah. You'll pee your pants and forget your name right in the middle of the plane. And we'll be sitting there like, dude, I told her not to do it. Now we're going to have to get off the plane and go right to regional jail to bail him out,
We'll see.
Don't do it, people. Just turn it off until they tell you to turn it on. Don't be one of those guys. I know the more videos I see of people doing stupid things on airplanes, the more it just makes you not want to fly.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish I could afford flying private all the time. For no other reason than I would like to have, real cookies instead of the little biscuits in the wrapper.
Listen,
some nice coffee.
Yeah. Pro traveling tip, because I was on a cruise for a while. I did not pay for the Wi-Fi package. On a lot of streaming sites and stuff, you can pre-download the movie onto your device. So you don't need service, whatever. Just come on. Be prepared. So when they tell you to turn your phone off, you can be nice and be like, all right, whatever, I got it. I don't need cell service. Just, you're good.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
If you go on the big flights, they got good movies usually.
Be prepared.
There it is.
Name the movie. Oh, come on.
Hold on.
Be prepared.
Wizard of Oz.
No. Come on, dude. Greatest Disney movie of all time.
Oh, Beauty and the Beast.
No.
Aladdin.
Come on, dude. My greatest Disney
Dragon
movie
Ball
of all
Z.
time. Dragon Ball Z. No.
Hold on.
I'll give you one more guess. Come on, dude.
Be prepared.
Come on.
All right,
the villain sings it. The villain sings it.
One. It's not Aladdin. It's not Lion King. It's not Beauty and the Beast.
Whoa.
Lion King?
Yeah, it's a Lion King. Come on, Scar, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Scar song. I learned to sing on that movie.
My favorite Disney movie of all time is probably... Oh, man, that's hard. There's just so many, man.
There's a lot.
So many. I'm a huge Aladdin fan.
I was gonna say, you strike me as an Aladdin fan. Yeah.
It's a good movie.
If I could show you the world. Come on now.
And the video game was fun growing up.
I do remember the video game.
So was Lion King video game.
Yeah. I had that one too.
Yeah. Today the kids are, building walls and shooting each other on Fortnite. We were jumping across fires with little lions. Hey, you asked for it.
Oh, come on. Nowhere near. You get me caught in this all the time. I know. Here it comes.
Got him.
Here it comes.
Don't blame me. You asked for it.
Do you know, this is a side note, do you know on airplanes they actually have like a gurney or a bed, like if people die they can lay them on them?
Oh,
like if you're on a cross-Atlantic flight, they can what do you do if you're in the middle of the ocean? Let's say you're 3 hours or 4 hours in the middle of the Atlantic. You got 3 hours one way, 3 hours the other.
Yeah.
If somebody dies, they have a place to like put them. I read that.
I'm sure.
Is that not crazy? It's a little weird.
Okay.
But I mean, what are you going to do when you're that high up in the air? You're 3 hours away. That's the worst time.
That's true.
If you're flying over land, I mean, you're essentially less than 10 minutes you can get on the ground probably at an airport somewhere.
Probably, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But hey, so Kyle Filipowski
Sorry.
plays for Duke.
Yeah.
He was injured last week when Duke lost to Wake Forest, and Wake Forest stormed the court.
I saw a little bit about this. Yeah.
Question is this: do we outlaw storming or do we keep it? Because this happens in football, happens in college football all the time. You're talking about 30,000 fans storming the field.
Yeah.
You're talking about 1,000 fans storming a court in a basketball arena. This is a hot topic right now in sports. Coaches have a very strong opinion on it. Bill Self, who coaches Kansas, said that he's experienced this probably more than a lot of coaches because everywhere they go, people want to beat them. They're always good. He said so he's had the court stormed on him so many times. He's had, he talks about injuries that he's seen, different things.
Yeah.
So I love the tradition of college sports. You don't ever see it in an NFL game. People ain't storming the field, right? They get tackled, tased, punched, whatever. But in college sports, it's become a part of the game. People do it. Back in the day, I think that social media, this is my opinion, I think social media makes us feel like we have access to people that we don't.
Yeah.
And I think that when you'll see people run on the field or the court and they're taunting the opposing players. Back in the day, they might say something here and there, but it wasn't about taunting the opposing team. It was about celebrating with your team. This is what I feel like.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel like people think they have a lot of access and they probably have less respect for the opposing athletes because they get more access to them. They watch their social. They think all of a sudden, and it's a real thing when you watch a lot of somebody's social, you almost feel like you know them, even if they don't know you. You almost feel inherently like a connection to that person.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that whole world has made people feel like there's access to these athletes that they don't really have. I mean, but this kid was taunting Filipowski and they collided and, luckily he's going to be okay. Thank God. Because he's going to be, a pick this year's NBA draft.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Should we allow it or should we overrule it? Get rid of it?
Yeah. I don't like people getting injured. So I'm not.
Well, nobody does. We get that, right? We get that part. But what's the bigger picture here?
Yeah, sure. You know me. I'm like a live in the gray kind of guy. I'm like, I can see both perspectives. So why not just have a thing where you safely get the players off the court and then you can celebrate?
Which is one of the proposed ideas.
Yeah.
If you're going to allow your fans to storm the court, then you must have a plan of evacuation or exit for the opposing team. If they're going through the handshake line, don't have a handshake line.
Yes.
Have a security protect the away team.
Yeah.
So that they can safely get out.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would want because I think
that is a good middle of the road solution.
Yeah, I want people to be able to celebrate. Especially, I get it at a collegiate level. You're like. Your whole school, you want to celebrate together. I don't want to take that away from people either.
Well, I mean, and they have those breakaway goalposts now.
Okay.
So the goalposts before they'd pull them down. Well, now when they go to pull them down, the security will unlatch them and they lay on the ground.
Gotcha.
They're breakaway for that reason because a bunch of crazy fans that were drinking way too much Miller Lite or Budweiser or Heineken, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
They would grab these, like the Tennessee beat Alabama. They took the uprights out of the stadium and threw them in the river.
See, that's a little. Come on, guys.
You throw the uprights in the river out of the stadium. I just want to know
your own school.
I just want to know. I just want to know at what point, when the uprights are being taken through the tunnel, that security just says, "You know what? We're just going to let this one go."
Yeah.
Like at that point, couldn't you just stand in front of all the? I know there might be 100 of them, but couldn't you just stand there? This is the thing. You tase one of them. The rest of them, they're probably dropping the uprights. Now, the downfall is you got to get those uprights back in the stadium.
Yeah.
But if you tase one of them, if one of the homeboys goes down, they're probably stopping in their tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I think that they let things go. And like Georgia, they stormed Georgia's field years ago. All the shrubs around Georgia are famous, right? They grow these shrubs. They bring them in. They're actually replacing them this year. They got demolished when the fans stormed the field a couple years ago because they were jumping over the first row or out of the first row into the field. And they were jumping on top of the shrubs. They had or maybe it was Auburn. They had the funniest videos of these students trying to jump and missing the jump and like landing in the middle of the bushes. And dude, they looked like it hurt. They're tightly trimmed.
Yeah.
There's these sticks going everywhere, and there's these fans getting caught in the middle of these bushes and couldn't get out. That's my point. They're destroying the place.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say on the other side of it at this point. I love the pageantry of college sports.
Yeah.
I think there's something special about them. I love Rudy. It's one of the greatest football movies of all time. I love college sports. I love college. I don't watch a ton of college basketball, but I do watch March Madness. And part of that's because this is busy season for me when college basketball is on. I watch every college football game that I can turn on the television for. I watch college baseball. I love college baseball. I like college softball whenever June comes around and the College World Series is on. I love all of it.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I think we're in a day and age where people's lives are in danger because of social a lot more than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just have easy access. You just have too much easy access to athletes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas I know when you get around there's security and everything, but I think that it gives people a false sense of reality when it comes to some of these people. Like they're not just, you can't just, they're a human. You can't just go talk trash and collide with somebody.
Yeah.
I think social media gives us a very distorted view of reality because what we see isn't real, and how easy it is to connect with people, it really isn't real because you can't really get to them. You think you can.
Yeah.
I think this has played into the fact that college sports is dangerous when you storm the courts because I think they're headhunting. I think there are people out there, they're not running towards their team. They're finding the opposing quarterback and they're getting in his face.
Yeah.
They've had to have people step in front of opposing quarterbacks trying to get off the field and fans.
Yeah.
That should never happen.
Yeah.
If I'm a college athlete, I'm terrified to get upset if I'm on the road because I don't want people storming the court.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a football field and there's 20,000 students that storm the court or storm the field with fans, I just don't trust it. If I'm an athlete, I would be passionate in disagreement with this whole because I think the day and age we live, when you watch these games and you see them storm, I'm just like that just looks so scary. Like they're in full sprint. You got a mob of people sprinting at you.
Yeah,
like you could very easily get ran over if there's a mob of dudes like let's go get that dude. I mean, it just seems so unsafe to me.
Yeah.
And I think the day and age we're in, I think the innocence is starting to get gone a little bit in some of these things because it's more about getting in the face of the other team than it is your own team. And I just think I've seen some of that whenever these, fans in the face of an opposing player, it's like, bro, who do you think you are? You were in the stands watching the game. The dude's a college athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Show him some respect, even if he's a punk. Show him respect.
Yeah.
Get out of his face. Go cheer with. I'm one of these things that I say, and I'd say this to my team all the time. I say this to my parents. We don't cheer against any kid. We just cheer for our kids.
Yeah.
Don't ever cheer against another kid. Don't ever cheer against a team. You cheer for our team. And I think that is being lost in college sports because, even vulgarity shouted at a player from the student sections. I hate that stuff. My boys are watching the game. Like, I hate that. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's just, for me, it's a passionate topic because I just feel like if they don't change it now, somebody will get really hurt before they will. And we're going to look back and say, why didn't they change it then? It's always what happens.
Yeah.
And so I think they have to do something about it. And I hate it because I love the pageantry of the sport.
Okay.
But
I'm going to propose this. All right. So at the end of every game, we're now going to have a whole committee that is in charge of setting up a rage room for stuff to people to break and set on fire so they can funnel all of that aggression, which is weirdly enough, you just won. Like, why are you so aggressive? You just won. Calm down a little bit. Celebrate. So
well, I think what it comes from, if we're being honest, these when you storm in the field, it's usually not number 1 Alabama beats number 5 Texas. That's expected. It's usually when you get upset and you're on the road. So I think a lot of times people are coming to the game feeling super insecure about it. They're trying to be cocky about it, but they know they're about ready to get the brake speed off of them. And then when they don't, it switches to, I knew we were better than you.
Yeah.
It's just, and listen, that's just competition. I get it. And I love the pageantry, but I just think maybe it's gone too far.
But destroying your own school's property is probably
but listen, these people are probably, the majority of them are probably extremely wasted.
I know.
I mean, there was people cutting out turf of Tennessee Stadium, and the groundskeeper went on and he was talking about how much work it is for them to redo this turf. They had to go to other schools to get turf because they had patches because Tennessee has a checkerboard in their end zone. They were cutting out checkerboard pieces and taking them home. There was people posting online and they were talking about filing charges against people who were taking parts of the grass with them.
Yeah.
Because they were saying, this is our property. But there was this lady in her 60s. She an older lady smiling with this big old piece of turf. I mean, they ain't like these drunk college frat boys. You know what I mean? This is everybody. They're just going on just taking pieces of stadium because we won. We beat Alabama, so let's just take parts of this turf home. That piece of turf in your hand probably cost about $50, if not more. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's been times where stadiums have had chairs ripped out. So it's just, I don't get it. I'm like, why not just control it and tell everybody to scoot back?
Rage room. And
they've tried to control it. I think the reality is they can't.
Oh, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we're having a conversation. They just can't.
They can't.
So,
yeah.
So hey, storm the courts, I guess.
I
mean,
guess, yeah.
keep
Just
it safe.
Be cordial.
Yeah, keep it safe. You know,
Be
every day,
cordial
every
when you're
time we
storming.
do, and I don't know why, but every time we record a podcast, Siri pops on.
Just yelling at you.
I think they're listening.
Probably.
I don't know who they are, but they're
Probably.
listening. I think they're listening to the podcast.
It's
Welcome to
aliens.
Brand Shank Podcast, whoever's on the other side of that. Yeah.
Aliens.
So, I was recently getting gear for my kids for baseball season, and my children, especially my youngest, I have wide feet.
So do I.
And so I've got to buy a half size up. So
Yep.
I'm a 10.5 guy. What size you wear?
14.
And you're 13.5, but you get 14s.
No, I'm 14. 14 and a half would be amazing, but
You just can't find
once
them.
you get past 13, it's kind of it's
Yeah.
a wild, wild west. Dude.
But I feel like 14s could be your sweet spot too, because nobody can. There's always got to be, if they make them in that size, they're usually on clearance because nobody buys
They're
them.
just not in stores.
Yeah.
I gotta buy them online.
Well, I wear a 10. I go 10.5. If I have a wide shoe, I can go 9.5. But I was recently at the store getting gear for my kids, and my youngest has wide feet, and there was a shoe that I looked up, and it said baseball on it. The tag had a Nike check. It said baseball.
Yeah.
And I asked the guy, I was like, "They says you have these in his size." He's like, "Yeah, they're actually softball cleats." I said, "But they say baseball." He's like, "I know." He's like, "These whole models, they're actually girls softball, but they say baseball." I was like, "Were they like a unisex?" He's like, "No, they're softball." I was like, "Well, why do they say baseball?" He's like, "Well," he's like, "next year," and I don't know the basis for this. This is what the salesman told me. He said next year Nike is doing away with men's and women's and going all sizes, and you just pick what fits.
Huh.
So they're going unisex with everything, sweatshirts, T-shirts.
Gotcha.
And he showed me, he said, "You see these pair of cleats? These are women's football cleats." He said, "They've been here for a year and a half, and I've sold one pair to a little boy."
Huh.
He said, they're trying to just mesh everything. And this was my thing. I say, listen, I get it that people are in a position where they're trying to find who they are and they're identity searching. But when you as a company start making things unisex, I can tell you now, Nike, if you're listening, my son, who is 6, will not be able to fit into a unisex girl. If it's a unisex shoe, what that says is they've come a little bit from the girls and a little bit from the boys and made it like something standardized.
Yeah.
It's never going to work for him. He's going to have to buy a size 9. If he wears a 6, he's going to have to buy a 9. So it just baffles me if these companies go to those. I know that some companies do that anyway, but a company like that who is so specific, and maybe that's not the case. Maybe they're just doing it with a couple of products, but it just surprised me because I think at some point you got to realize like there is a significant difference in how our bodies are constructed.
Sure.
As male and female, there's a scientific evidence. It is as white as my skin and as blue as the sky. I can't change my skin color. I can't change the sky color.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way our bodies are constructed. And I'm baffled that companies are doing away with that. And for the sake of, I mean, I'm sure they'll have some reason that sounds very political, theologically correct and caring. But the reality of it is they're just trying not to offend people is my guess.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking you're going unisex for everything. Like there are women who will never be able to wear your product and there are men who won't be able to wear your product. It's just not, it doesn't work like that.
I know.
I'm on the unisex edge, meaning there's stuff that's unisex that that sometimes doesn't fit me.
Well, yeah. Well, nothing fits me. So.
But shoes is one of those things as an athlete, it's got to be fine tuned. And to give a shoe, and now I don't know if this is true. I'm telling you from what somebody told me. So there's no merit to this.
Yeah.
So I just thought it'd be I wanted to bring it up because I think it's an interesting where I think we're going to see more of this. And I think you see some of it now.
Yeah.
But when it comes to shoes, there are styles that are going to tend to attract the majority of females and the majority of males. And there are sizes that would fit the majority that would be good. You need wider shoes or thinner shoes. I just don't understand how you can just meet in the middle.
I guess there's a thinking too that, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's almost like the thinking is, well, we had 2 lanes and now we're just going to like meld it down into one rather than like, well, those 2 lanes still exist. I mean, you could have just done 3. You just could have done a new line that was that. But the thinking tends to be, well, we're just doing this now so we don't offend anybody. Well, it's like, well, you could have just gone 3 different directions. And I think that's like okay as a big company like that.
But then you're saying there's a bathroom for these group of people.
Well, yeah.
And so there's male, female, and then those of you who don't really associate with either one. So that's why they're saying we're just going to do unisex.
Which is why I think you see a lot of like one stall, like single person bathrooms that are unisex.
What else you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just put it out there. So for me, I'm curious as to how they'll fit.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds.
Is this, Asher, you're talking?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I blew out the sides of so many shoes growing up.
All of my kids, honestly, like 3 of my 4 kids got pretty wide feet.
Yeah.
So, hey, just throwing it out there. We'll see what happens. Long COVID is a real thing.
Transition.
Long COVID is a real thing, and Americans are paying a price. I found this very interesting. Right now, it's costing America $200 billion per year.
Phew.
Because of people that have long COVID. One of the people that were talking about in the article has had it since 2022. No energy, can't hardly function.
Jeez.
According to an analysis that was done in 2022, long COVID cost the American economy astronomical amounts of money.
Yeah.
And it's because of lost productivity, wages, and medical costs.
Mm.
And so they're saying it's a real thing, and that 16 million Americans, they're estimating, have long COVID, and maybe 4 million of them are disabled by it.
Shoo.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's just a real thing, and people are not able to function properly. COVID destroyed so much, right?
Yeah.
It killed so many people, and there's so many people that will never be the same. They had it destroyed their lungs or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's so many people now that are suffering from it years after. And it's such a mystery disease. And I was thinking yesterday about the pandemic and the people that were stuck overseas and the people that couldn't get home to their families. And I think there's a new line of anxiety and depression and fear that's come along with COVID for people.
Yeah.
Because those of you who struggle with agoraphobia, which is a fear of panic or fear of, like, you stay in your home because it's the safe place, it's gotten worse. And that's why the mental health therapists they've been going through the roof, because people, and this is what I struggle with. A couple years ago, I was in a hotel and I woke up in a panic attack, and I just was like, what is wrong with me? I hadn't had one for 5 years. Yeah. I had nothing to panic about. And then the Holy Spirit spoke to me so clearly. He's like, this is COVID. Now, as a pastor during COVID, like, we went through some extreme tragedy like every other church. We were online for a year. God, he guided us, but it was a little bit, when I look back, it was such a sweet time as far as the Holy Spirit's peace and his presence was here, but it was devastating as far as it was so dark for all of us. When you look back, it was just a very dark time. Is that safe to say?
Oh, yeah.
Like a nightmare. We all lived a nightmare.
Yeah.
So right now, that's why there's so many people that it's not that people are discovering, well, I had health problems, mental health problems before. It's that people are living in a state of fear, because what if it happens again? What if it kicks in again?
Yeah.
What if it all starts over? And so I was reading an article, and it was talking about how America, we're over-medicated when it comes to the mental health world. And it says that, like, we're good at starting treatment, but we're not always good at how to medicate it or when to stop it. So we think, well, I'm just going to be in treatment for the rest of my life. And the whole concept was that there's therapists that said, I can do the work from here on my own, but they didn't see a need for me because what I was dealing with wasn't as intense as the things they see every day. And so that's kind of how mine ended. I had 3 different therapists over the course of 5 years before COVID. And for me, they were just like, yeah, you don't, like, you're good. And so then I'd wait about a year and go to the next one when I got to the next place where I needed kind of that kind of help me get where I was going. I didn't really know what to do next.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that they were like, yeah, the stuff they're seeing right now, people like me who are going through anxiety or kind of going through some stuff from a long time ago, once I got a grip on it, they were ready to move on because they were dealing with people that had significant issues that were, not that mine weren't significant, theirs were medicated issues.
Yeah, yeah.
And the majority of people, they say, never get PTSD, but we always say, well, I had PTSD from that. They're saying majority of people actually don't ever get PTSD. They don't actually have it. They just think they have it because it was a traumatic event in their life.
Yeah.
And the good news is that they're saying in past generations, people couldn't even take the very first step to identify what trauma was affecting them, whereas now we can. And they say the harm right now with the therapy in America is that you never get to discover that you're more capable and independent than you think you are because people are just staying in therapy. And so they said the question to ask is, when am I done and why should I be done?
That's really good. Really good. Because I asked myself that question. Like, that hits hard for sure. Because I did 7 months of counseling, and you just don't, like, you honestly, like, I think it was a decision that I came to with my counselor. But you honestly don't really know. It literally is that moment where you're just like, well, I got to jump out of the nest at some point and hope I can fly and figure it out. And I hope that I've been given the tools to do so. And you do have to have that moment where you're like, I gotta go back out here and I gotta manage, or I gotta go back out here and I gotta fight this thing, and I gotta go back out here and actually utilize the tools that was imparted into me. As long as I took that time seriously and I was like, I'm going to therapy to put in the work. And I think that was my mentality. So when it came time to really pull that ripcord, I wasn't sure, but I also was like, well, I feel prepared, if that makes sense. But dude, that's real. Yeah. Like, when do you stop? I don't, at some point, I do believe in the tools that I was given because they work. But you got to use them. And at some point you make that exchange from my counselor continuing to have to kind of give me those tools or ask like, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? At some point I do the homework myself, and it transitions to me continuing to do that work. And I don't really need someone to necessarily hold my hand anymore.
What do they say? What do they call it? The therapy when you're talking cognitive, or what do they call it?
Yeah.
Whatever they're saying that's the most healing thing, that medicines don't always work. It's actually sitting down with somebody talking. When I started mine, I started 6 months after we launched the church.
Yeah.
5 months. 2015. I was terrified. I walked into a counselor's office. It was packed because there's like 5 or 6 counselors that shared, and it was just packed. I mean, wall to wall, people just waiting. It was like, everybody was sick. It was in 2015. And they called my name, and I was terrified. I was afraid like a demon was going to manifest whenever I started talking. Not for no other reason. I was just terrified. Like, what's going to come out of me? My biggest fear about going to counseling was what's going to come out of me.
Yeah.
I sat down with the counselor, and we talked, and I went back 3 times altogether. The third time I went back, he just said, he's like, you're at a place now where you're good. He's like, you can take it from here. And he was just very clear. He's like, work through the stuff we've talked about, blah, blah. About a year passed. In 2016, I went online and did BetterHelp. I went on there and found a counselor, a Christian counselor. And for me, it was important because I needed them to understand, like, I'm coming to you because I need counseling, but I know that God is going to be the thing. The Holy Spirit's going to bring me through. I needed somebody to understand, like, my beliefs, the power of God in what I was doing. I was willing to do the work, but that I was relying on him, So I went to found a Christian counselor. And somebody and I did the online, so it wasn't face to face; it was all writing.
Yeah,
and it was good because I'm not a journalist, or a journaler. So I just started journaling everything, and I would talk to this person, this counselor, and that was about 3 months. That was in 2016, until I got to the next place, and then about a year later, I went to another counselor that was here local. The same therapy service I went to the first time, but there was a different person. And I dealt with another part of my life. And I was there for probably another 6 months, 3 months. And they were never really long stints, probably 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And from there, it was probably about 6 months, but it was only like once a month, maybe 8 months, once a month. And then I went to a specialized counselor in Ohio that's for ministers called Emerge Ministries. It's for pastors particularly. And I went there for a 3-day intensive, did some testing that took a long time, and just every day, maybe it was 3 or 4 days, I went every day for like 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, and just did counseling. And that was an intensive. And he was like, you're doing great. Here's your tools. He gave me resources to work with. And when I came back, I met with my counselor, and she was like, yeah, you're great, And these don't get me wrong. In my counseling, I had a counselor look at me about 2 years into my process, and they said, I don't know how you're still here. And I don't know that they're supposed to say that, but what she said to me was, with your story and the things you've been through, people don't make it this far.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? She's like, basically they take their life.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I knew God was working. When I went to that ministry, that was in 2019. That was the last counseling that I had done. That was 5 years ago. And what I can tell you is I was great when it was all over. They never took medicine. Not that I shun that at all. I don't. If you feel like you need it and they prescribe it, then you got to do what you feel is right.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't take anything, but it was never offered either. And all my counselors were at a place where like, yeah, you're ready to go to the next place. I've had my panic and stuff has come on after COVID. So there's a part of me like, man, maybe I need to go back. But I'm doing self-diagnosis, which is weird. But I think after you've been through a lot, you kind of know.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's just that feeling unsafe. Like, I think I keep going back to the things that we walked through a lot with our church, and people got stuck overseas. And I mean, COVID was like, you're stuck where you're at. You're on lockdown. Like we pastor a military community here. So there was guys let out to sea another 6 months, or people that were stuck away from their families for months. And for me, I think for a lot of us, there's such instability in that whole process. That it's really made me trust God even more and walk through that fear of being out of control. And it's helped. And so I tell people that because I've thought about, well, I need to go back to counseling. It's like, well, I know what it is. I've been able to self-diagnose that. And it's not a matter of these undiagnosed things. I think I could always use counseling for the rest of my life. So let me say that. But what I've replaced it with is really good friends that I can talk to about anything. I had good friends help me through those times. I mean, I had probably 3 or 4 core guys that were with me for all those years, and they were amazing. But where I'm at now is I've got really good friends that if I need it, I can call them, and they're going to pick up. And I can be like, hey, man, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through. And I don't need the professional advice of how to walk through it. I just really need to be able to talk and have somebody listen. And I've learned how to have good friends. I've learned how to have relationships that there's not walls about what we are, can and can't do. It's just good friendships that have been medicinal for me.
Mm-hmm.
That I think at this point I can talk to my wife about anything, and she doesn't have a ton of response because she doesn't struggle with those types of things, but she listens, and just knowing somebody listens, is probably something that you hold it in for all those years, and then when you finally talk about it, you realize I don't really have much to be scared about. I just need somebody to know that I'm scared, and it changes things.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's crazy. Isn't it crazy how your mind works? Like I'm still baffled by
scary.
Yeah.
To a degree, honestly.
Well, fearfully and wonderfully made, man.
It's scary, but it's also enlightening.
It became such an awe-inspiring thing for me because I literally walked into counseling as like an extreme emotional stuffer and literally having the perspective of like, how does this even help? Like, not that I fully doubted it, but at the start of it, I was willing. I was like, well, I don't have any other choices here. I mean, at that point in the 2 depressions I've had in my life, I had tried 30 plus medications, and all of which gave me negative side effects. So medication just wasn't an answer for me.
Made it worse.
It made me way worse.
Which some people it doesn't.
Yeah.
But the cognitive behavioral therapy is always the answer.
CBT.
Right?
Yeah. So, I was like, well, this is literally the last option that I have. And dude, it was such an awe-inspiring thing to realize that this is how your brain is wired and this is what it has to do to kind of heal itself. And it has your brain. And again, I believe this, fearfully and wonderfully made because of how God created us. It has immense power to heal
and destroy.
Yeah, immense
Those
power.
Pathways have got to be remade.
What you feed it, and it is way more capable of doing things than you possibly could ever imagine it can. But it does take work and effort. And again, I'm right there with you. I'm not anti-medication. I'm anti-medication for myself because I know what it did to me, but I understand that for other people, it absolutely can be a miracle.
And I think, too, to your point, though, whenever you start to feel like you're not worried about what you used to be worried about, you start worrying about why I'm not worried about it. And if I belong in this space of not being worried about things I used to be worried about, it's like, well, why? I need to worry about it because then you feel like you have a level of control. Mm-hmm. But when you're not worried about the things and you're traveling or doing whatever you're doing that feels free again, you start worrying because you're not worrying. Mm-hmm. And you feel like if you worry, it's comfort. Because what happens is fear becomes comfort.
Yep.
Because it makes us feel like we're in control because we're constantly thinking about it. If we're constantly thinking about it, then nothing can come in and infiltrate what we're trying or, take over the moment. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And it is like that, scriptural of renewing your mind. It is finding where things are housed, rooting them up, processing them, dealing with them, feeling them, and like you said, facing them and realizing that it's like, I was so scared of this, but I don't know if I have to be.
Yeah.
Like, and there's someone else there with you that is like, you have every right to be afraid. Like, that would make anybody afraid. But you're okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, dude, but when that emotions come to the surface and you are able to then feel it and sense it, but then take a step back from it and view it for what it is. And then all of a sudden, I'm telling you, a new pathway happens in your brain, and you just practice that pathway of thinking. And all of a sudden, it takes a little while, but you're like, I'm less afraid. I'm less afraid. I'm less afraid. I understand it. And as soon as your brain understands it, it's almost like the fear of it gets sucked out of the room. And not that it's never there. I mean, we've talked about this. My biggest thing is the reason why I know I haven't stuffed my depression is because it's right behind me. Like, it's there. Like, past me would have stuffed it, and then it would have just disappeared. I'm like, oh man, like, it's nowhere to be found. No, it's right there. I can sense it. I can feel it at times. There are times where it draws and it pulls on me, but I go back to the things that I've learned, the tools, how I've been equipped, and it's there, but I'm not afraid of it.
Well, that's what happens whenever I've heard people who have panic attacks. They're like, what made you come out of them? They're like, well, they knew they had the tools to where they knew every time one hit, they could get out of it.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of being back in control of your own body.
Yeah.
And when you know you can be back in control, you don't fear them anymore. Because well, at the end of the day, because that's what fear does. It makes you feel like it has control of you. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because the Bible says that God's not given us a spirit of fear.
Yeah.
But of power, love, and of a sound mind. Or timidity.
Yeah.
He hasn't given us that spirit. So
we're self-disciplined. Like, we're disciplined. Like, we're called to be, like, again, I can't control what the world's going to do to me, but I can be self-disciplined to the point where I know how God has created me, and I know what to do, and he's equipped me to handle the curveballs that the world can throw. That's the way I view it, because I think sometimes when we look at the world too much, you can get freaked out at what the world is potentially could do to you, and that can cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. But when you release that thing of like, I don't have control of that. Like, God has control of me, and he's helped me learn how to control myself, that I'm self-disciplined enough.
It's fully faith.
Yeah.
100%. When I struggle with those things, it's like, I've got to get back in. Honestly, for me, I have to go through seasons where I'm just reading the word. For me, it's reading the word, spending time with God. Like, I've got to have that peace in me.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's always there. It's just, like, I don't live in it, and I'm not going to live in it.
Yeah.
And you feel the clouds break open. People talk about the gray areas. Like, when you feel those clouds break open, you don't have to let those things determine the pace in your life. You can determine the pace, Well, final thought.
Here's my final thought.
I always think rules of war are very interesting because I think war is to be killed.
Okay.
War is, it's for death. Like when David was fighting throughout the Old Testament, he was undefeated, never lost a war, and there was no rules that they really obeyed unless God told them. They went and, they were like, hey, why'd you keep that king alive? God told you to kill him. Like, hey, that king's head needs to be on whatever.
Yeah.
Needs to be on the end of a spear, whatever it may be. There was no rules. It was, you're evil, we're going to kill you. And I mean, it's interesting to me how we will go to war with terrorists or other people, and there's rules of war. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that, it's inhumane, this and that. It's like, well, murder's inhumane. Yeah. Killing people, flying planes into buildings is inhumane. Shooting somebody, whether or not you're shooting a terrorist or a terrorist is shooting us, it's inhumane. I've talked to guys, I know a lot of guys, Navy SEALs, other things, who have had to fight, and no human, at the end of the day, ever feels great about taking a human life. It's just not a reality of it. It's not how we were made. We weren't made, but that's what is necessary at times, right?
Yeah.
It's what obviously protecting your country, and David, when he was building Israel and like taking over, there were things that they had to do. And I think every Christian is probably a pacifist to a degree of like, we wish there was no war, but the reality is people who are pacifists. It's like, the reality is there is a war.
Yeah.
And the whole hippie generation, there was a special I watched, and it was very interesting because the hippie generation was all about peace and love. They were also about like sex with anybody, a lot of them, like in communities, but they were also about like these psychedelics. And for me, it was like they were searching for the Holy Spirit. They were searching for something that was different than what you'd experience on the earth. And I think they were onto something. Some of them, I think they were onto something. They were searching, like that Jesus Revolution movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, it came out of that. Yeah.
It was great, but it was, they were taking these psychedelics. They were searching for something bigger. They were about peace and love. And I don't think, being a pacifist is what God was at the beginning. But when we allow sin into the world, it's not God's fault that war exists. It's our fault that war exists. And what's funny to me is like, this is Satan's domain. And we're like, God, how could you? How could you let that person die? How could you let this war take place? And God's like, That was not my choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your choice was war. Your choice was death. Your choice was adulteries. Your choice is murder. Your choice is rape. That's your choice. Mine was life. Mine was pacifism of no war.
Yeah.
Let's all be in harmony with one another.
Yeah, because collectively, if the entire world operated like Jesus,
there'd never be war.
We wouldn't have war.
And so be like, how can you? And Christians, how do you this? It's like, this was not the way God designed us.
Yeah.
We chose it. But I think it's interesting because we're hardened and we've got all of these weapons that could destroy the world. If everybody pushed the button right now, it'd be over.
Yeah.
But yet there's rules of war, which shows you that in the core of all of us, there's compassion.
Yeah.
That's all rules of war are.
There's a moral compass.
That is all rules of war are, is compassion.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the other day of like, if you're really hardened and you're going to war to destroy somebody, forget the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But we have rules of even how we have to kill.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Because at the heart of all of us, there is a compassion.
We're wired. I mean, this gets into the topic of literally the, Christian atheist topic of like, why are we hardwired for morals?
Yeah.
I mean, they come from our creator. They come from God. They come from the 10 Commandments.
100%.
We are wired to operate this way. And that just,
if there is a child in the middle of if there's a child in the middle of a circle and there's a fountain and they're looking around for their parent, every parent there walks over to that child.
Yeah.
Every person there goes to help the child.
Yeah. It's, yeah, dude.
Or they should.
I love this form of thinking because it does go back to just these fundamental, foundational truths that, on the atheist side would just be like, well, just because we're naturally good. And yet we sit at a place where like, no, like we actually are naturally not good. We have a sin nature, and it is only because of Jesus that we have a pathway to righteousness.
Well, when kids are born,
yeah,
they know, a lot of them know, like they'll look at you if they're doing something wrong. There's an innate morality,
yeah.
But we also have to teach them right from wrong.
Yes.
Because if you grew up with a kid and you let them, take a hammer and hit your walls,
mm-hmm.
and you just taught them that's right, they would go to a friend's house and they're 12 and be like, you don't hit hammers on your walls? And they'd be like, why would you hit hammers on your walls? It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, we do it in our house. We hammer our walls. And you're like, you're listening to this thing, well, why would you hammer your walls? It's weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
You teach kids what you want them to know.
Yeah.
Well, that's a weird concept, but there are weird things that we teach our kids that we have a responsibility, but there is an innate right and wrong in them of like, well, this isn't right.
Yeah.
This isn't the way things, like they move away from it, like, it's not right for mom or dad to do that.
There's a harder time. There's more effort that has to be put forth to teach my children the right thing to do than the wrong thing to do.
Sure.
The wrong thing to do is natural. The wrong thing to do is to be selfish, to be prideful, and to want what you want and to seek pleasure.
To hit the walls with hammers.
And that is our sin nature.
If you gave your kid a hammer when he was 4, what would you have done with it?
Yeah.
And you didn't tell him to stop.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
It's chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we're built to love. And that's one thing I've always heard is there's something about Christians is they can love to a level nobody else can because of the Holy Spirit in them. So
that's good.
Hope y'all love each other. Take care of each other out there. And we'll see you as always this weekend. Let me pray for you. Lord, I thank you for each and every person. I pray that they would know you love them, you see them. Today, let this be the moment where they know that you are with them, that God, you never left them and never will. That, Lord, you will be with them. All they do is call on your name, God, and you are right there. And you are present and you hear them. You're ever-present help in our time of need. We love you, and we're so grateful. Everybody said amen. Love you all. See you this weekend, 9:30 Palm Church.